Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Pensado's Place. First off, thanks for all the birthday hellos and shout outs. Most appreciated. In a minute, you'll meet Stan Kybert, an expert in immersive audio, Dolby Atmos mixing based in London. He's going to share with you his really interesting perspective. Here's the final list of Avid Ultimate giveaway winners, although it won't be final forever, just this particular contest. Shout out to Lawrence Chandler from London, Sang Soo from Florida, Cesar Valencia from Alabama, Darion Batts from North Carolina, Dave Hunter from Australia, and Andrew Herrick from California. Congrats, guys. The rest of you head over to avid.com/Pro Tools. Avid is reshaping what they're doing. You're going to love their updated DAW and what they're going to do with it. Go there and check it out. Another company we really like is NuGen. NuGen Audio, they just released their Paragon ST. Click the link before, check out their suite of amazing plugins. Next week, Dave, our Master Blaster, will get together with Freddie from NuGen and give you a rundown on how all their stuff works and why they're good for you. Also, make sure you get to the Pensado's Place Sweetwater Marketplace. Click the link below, get great deals on products that we love, enter the monthly giveaway, win thousands of dollars in gear. They are great partners, and we're going to make sure they're great partners for you. So click the link and go. NAMM coming up. We're excited about it. June 3 through 5. Be there. Registration is open at NAMM.org. Secure your badges. We are going to have 2 nights, 1,000-seat ballroom. We're going to have super panels. We're going to give away thousands of dollars of gear. You want to get there early. We'll be announcing those panels soon. There's special pricing we're providing for students and education folks. Just $35 to get in. We call it Pensado Palooza. In the NAMM stuff, they call it the Pensado Residency. We're telling you that we are going to throw down. You're going to throw down. We're going to load up the room with stars. You're going to be sitting, mixed by Ali and Josh Goodwin. Those just in the audience. Wait till you stay tuned. We got an announcement coming. We're going to do our thing. And now, before we get to Stan, we want you to meet GPU Audio. They are doing some really incredible things with your graphics card that then can turn it into more processing power for you in audio. They've got a link for an early access opportunity for their plugin. It includes a Discord community of users and developers. You see the link right here. But then in May, June, they'll be releasing their full suite of plugins, announcing some third-party partners. GPU Audio for us is very impressive, and we want you to meet them. Here's John, Rowdan, Sasha T, and a couple of us in a quick segment so you can hear what they're talking about. Good to see you.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, man.
So give us the cliff notes. What is GPU Audio? What are you doing? How are you changing the world?
I'll let Jonathan start, and then I will add some technical details on that.
Okay, awesome. Hey, everybody. My name is Jonathan again. I'm CBO over here. I'm co-founder with GPU Audio. So basically what GPU Audio does is it unlocks your graphics card to do super low latency and what I would call high volume or high performance DSP. So, I think the Pensado's listeners will know exactly what that means. It basically means that we're, by using a GPU, we can spread what would normally be done in a sequential process on your CPU. We can break it down into tiny little particles essentially and spread it out across thousands of GPU cores. And as you can imagine, if you're dealing with, 8,000 cores as opposed to 16 cores, what are the possibilities, right? There were some technical limitations, that held us back for like over a decade. So, people weren't able to really parallelize it in the right way because of the computer science issues behind the math. But this team, GPU Audio, I'm actually the latest of the co-founders to come to the company, but these guys at GPU Audio were able to innovate and invent a way to actually do that at low latency. So now we can successfully parallelize audio processing and DSP across thousands of GPU cores within 1 millisecond latency on the VST3 standard. And if we get outside of VST3 into custom software, we're down to like 150 microseconds. So we're basically talking real-time audio on GPUs. It does everything from power up existing, plugins that can, if we re-implement plugins, we can give you more power to work with so that you don't, bottleneck so hard. or it actually opens up the future of all kinds of things such as like cloud DSP, collaborative work, machine learning and AI based software. So you name it, we think GPU audio could be the next standard for that. So that's why we made it. And that's what we're doing.
Sasha, if I'm now in English, I'm a bedroom producer. How do I use this?
So basically, you just download our first plugin. This is GPU FIR Convolver. You install this as very generic VST3 plugin, and it just powers up with your NVIDIA card. You get onboarded, whether it is desktop or laptop, and this just works. Within 1 millisecond latency, you can run. Currently, it's about 300 channels independently from CPU and so on. And with the time, once we will get rid of all of the VST3 limitations we have for today, it can be expanded on the same hardware up to 2000 and even more. So the idea, it works just the same way as any audio unit VST3 stuff. You just get it downloaded, you just install, you just make it run, and it's just a simple plugin, just as usual.
Does it work with Blade servers?
Surely. So everywhere you have, currently it's NVIDIA only, but within 2-3 months, we will support AMD. Okay. Everywhere you have generic GPUs or non-generic GPUs running CUDA code, you can make this thing running everywhere. Wow. So it supports if your GPUs are deployed somewhere locally over the network, we can also support that. If it works somewhere in the cloud, it also works that. So GPU binaries are compatible with pretty much everywhere. And we have our low latency networking technology implemented as well, but this is yet another talk.
Yeah. Sorry.
The part in the early, when I first came across you guys came across us and we bonded like almost immediately. The idea of my team, our team being able to go instant rendering, instant downloading, I was like, you had me at that. Whatever else and however well you got to it, no problem. But I was like, what a giant game changer for that kind of capacity to take that stuff from your graphic card, repurpose it for audio, and then be able to do things that. So, it's really exciting, and I think that I'm curious what everybody else thinks, but I think it's one of those things that could just become a staple. Like, why would you not have this, which makes you get more value out of your computer, more ability to do things, and also is good for innovation coming down the road? Was that part of the process in thinking about it?
Oh yeah, I mean that, to be really honest, that was one of the big things that really attracted me to the company too. When I came in and joined up to meet with them, because I've been really into this tech, like really into spatial audio, really into Unreal Engine and things like that, sort of in my free time outside of being a musician. And when I a couple of years ago first heard what these guys were doing, I thought, because like Sasha was saying about how GPU audio binaries and stuff, or GPU binaries are sort of like, cross compatible across, either clouds or local Blade servers, or even just your local GPU. Mm-hmm. It made so much sense that this could actually be, considered a universal standard for audio processing in the future, right? Because it's, since the solution was created at such a low level of technology, low in terms of like on the stack, you know what I mean? Like at the root level of the tech, that there's, anything that uses audio can implement this in a way, but we started with pro audio, but yeah, I think it leads towards this brighter future, of power, being just more accessible, you know what I mean? And a lot more affordable for people too, especially once we move to cloud, and that's a huge conversation. I hear a lot of people, debate about, but I think GPUs can do it.
Yeah. So I cannot hear from my technical perspective that we were figuring out, okay, we first ever used the entire power of graphics cards, which is far more advanced compared with any CPU and especially with DSP cards, right? So what else can we do with that? Do we need to run like hundreds of channels of reverse? Well, sure, we can do it, but no one needs it. But we would just want you to give a taste with this GPU FIR Convolver, like how exactly this thing is It's powerful. And we were thinking about what else we can do. And such DAWs like Audition, they have this background rendering thing, right? So some of the offline tracks, they can be continuously rendered by the DAW. So at some point of time, when a producer done its job with some heavy projects, they can save some time when you do, again, the exporting your project, right? We were thinking on that specific feature, like you have the entire powerhouse, like even laptop grade graphics cards, RTX 3080, have like 6 or 8 or 10,000 cores, right?
Wow.
So you can use all of them to continuously render any user edit ever made. But what else if we can get this thing and we can potentially expand this exact feature for some kind of cloud base where all of the GPUs are somewhere in cloud, and we can expand this to some kind of collaborative DAW, collaborative product when like 10 users working on some heavy audio project, like working on TV series episode, 512 tracks, Dolby Atmos, 8-channel, 45 minutes long. All of the people, like some people work with removing noise, some people just composing the music, all of them working together on the same stuff. What if we can just continuously render any user edit immediately so everybody can listen for result immediately and monitor, right?
Wow.
This will boost the entire workflow, and this will accelerate the entire production in the audio. So this is the exact thing I think we are here as a next generation standard.
Amazing.
You mentioned laptops, which is probably going to be the most users that we get for your plugin. But at what point? I'm not really clear. At what point would we need an eGPU for the laptop to be able to maintain your core?
So basically, what we see is that with the time, when GPU audio will grow as an ecosystem, we can implement more and more plugins and more products GPU powered. You will not need anymore your desktops or your racks or something unless you're a retro guy, right?
It's amazing.
So we just want to unlock any graphics cards embedded in your laptop GPU. So our early access product already works in that way. So you can run it on any NVIDIA discrete GPU, and this particular GPU will render the audio. And embedded GPU, which is Intel UHD, it will just render the rest of the GUI stuff. The same, it works for the laptops, for the AMD-based laptops. The same, we're going to provide for our GPU-FR convolver for the old Macs, like until like the June or May or something. We will release this version also. And after that, we will add the M-Silicon support.
One of the things that we do, which is chiefly modeled after Dave with Pensado Preferred. It's one thing to have the gear, it's another thing to have the tech, it's another thing to solve a problem, but the people are important to us because there is a difference between people who are passionate about music and are finding tools to help that, or passionate about audio. There's a difference between companies who want to make money and use that path to do it. Nobody's a bad person, but we prefer the people who care about it. I've had the pleasure of being on the phone. I hate for you guys, probably not a pleasure, but every Friday we get on the phone and we talk about where the company's going and what we can do together. So I just want to tell our community, these guys care about you. From here through NAMM, you're going to find out how much. I would suggest that you strongly sign up to come to our event. We're going to have some spectacular stuff there from these guys. They kind of blow me away. And then there's going to be ongoing things afterwards so that, as they have said, your job, your workflow, your ability to create becomes more efficient. You'll need less tools. You don't even have to get additional things. Let's get power out of your laptop and convert it. they're solving problems in a big way, and they happen to care about it. And it's just impressive, guys. Jonathan and Sasha, I sorry to fawn on you and fanboy over you, but this shit is cool.
Mhm.
Thanks, Carp. And we're definitely here for the audience, because our aim is to do not actually make yet another way to compute audio, that sort of thing. We want to democratize the power everybody has.
Yeah.
That's our mission.
I was going to say, you kind of made me laugh because your audience's problems are also my problems. You know what I mean? As an audio guy. So
Right.
if we don't solve the problems, I'm out of here. So I'm,
No, it's a really relevant point. Before we came on air, Dave and I were talking about why Jonathan uses that mic, and he got it primarily because he's a sax player, and it solves and it does really good stuff. And you see him sitting around the gear. We have plenty of these conversations where people are just in front of a computer and are looking to do a tech things. These are people who love music. And look, we are honored that you thought about us. We think the fit makes sense. Dave has been intrigued by it from the time we've turned him on to it. It's always good when the wizard's intrigued. And I've gotten to know you a little bit as people, and I really dig the team and what you guys are doing.
Same here.
We got a lot coming for you guys. You've met Jonathan Rowdan and Sasha T, co-founders of GPU Audio. They're all over the world, coming to a computer and laptop near you right away. See you guys.
See you guys. Cheers. Thank you.
That's GPU Audio. More from them. They're going to be providing some great things at NAMM, and what a great way to get more power out of your laptop. You don't have to buy anything. Use your plug-in and make it happen. Now to Stan Kybert, just an incredible, talented guy. Over 1,000 Dolby Atmos mixes, Rolling Stones, Lord, Brandy Carlisle, Sam Smith, just a ton of people. But his knowledge base about Atmos and what's going on, his experience and how relevant it is, we found it to be fascinating. We think you will too. Here, enjoy Stan Kybert. Stan, welcome to the party.
Hey, incredible to be here.
It is literally our honor. You know, the amazing thing about folks who have their feet in traditional mixing and then make the pathway through all the changes is that I think each layer of information you get informs and opens the door to even newer things in the tools you got. Sometimes, because we see it with artists, sometimes they borrow from the past to create the future. And I think the same thing holds true with mix engineers and partisans and producers. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And it really rings true to me when you're saying that in my transition, that I find myself heavily, excuse the pun, but heavily immersed in Atmos music now.
Yes.
And
yep.
I feel as if I wouldn't be, the transition wouldn't have been as smooth, or maybe what I'm doing wouldn't have gone, or it's going down well with my artists and my clients. And I feel a lot of that is my 20 years in music production. I feel that those, I'm working across a wide, diverse range of projects and musics and genres, and that a lot more so than I ever did as a mixer or a producer.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. Yeah, I think that's age. I think that's experience. I think that's knowing what's appropriate and maybe what isn't appropriate. And I couldn't agree more.
Beyond such incredible, your resume, getting through Oasis and the Gallagher Brothers and all the stuff that you have, Prodigy and on and on, Lord, and one of the coolest things that you've done, and it's just I'm a fanboy, is I think Spike Stent is just a lethal talent, and he happens to also be a sweetheart. His wife is amazing. I've spent a lot of hanging out time with them and Greg Wells. And the idea that you, as somebody who, that sound and that ability is created together. I'm not taking anything away from Spike, but I don't want to take away from your contributions of the time you worked with him. It just arms you to be, for this transition. we encourage people to try to, if they can, put themselves in situations where they're constantly learning. We think that's an important thing to do if you can do. Were those formative years for you with Spike?
Oh, like invaluable. And you know, it's so funny time with Spike because it was a while ago, right? We're talking mid-90s.
Mm-hmm.
So a long time ago.
Yeah.
And many lifetimes ago, right? Many, for me at least, many lifetimes ago. And I was very young. I was like 19 or something. I was so fortunate I kind of came out of a college, a sound engineering studio college, caught 1 year sort of course in London, and sent out CVs like by post, this way before the internet, and managed to get a job and then hook up with Spike at Olympic in like an amazing time. And it's something that if I draw on it today, it's those wider aspects like work ethic and so dedicated. I mean, so dedicated, and some, obviously technique and amazing engineer. Like some of the recording sessions we did, we recorded an Oasis record in the south of France. And I remember like one day we took a load of Knowles gear out there and set up this sort of vintage. You had this EMI console, we had the Neve console, and there's kind of like this drum sound going. And I had no idea how Spike was doing it. And it came down to like, he was just recording. It was a stereo recording, but there was a live drummer in a stairwell in a chateau in the south of France.
Wow.
We're in the garage, and he's also got like the drummer was playing to this like break that was being pumped out of the wedges that was echoing back round into this, and then it was coming through. I had no idea, and it was like the greatest sound. Like it was the greatest sound the greatest drum sound you've ever heard. And then you expect it to be at least like split out or some sort of control, and it's stereo, and it's and then that's the. And then, the record's mixed, Spike mixed it brilliantly like 6 months later, and that's the stereo drum sound. So, but yeah, the wider things, there's always technique, isn't there? And you always you're trying to sit on someone's shoulder and learn. And at least we did back in the day. That was like kind of the end of that era, really. But being in the room and assisting but things that for, opportunities from Spike, and just incredible and so grateful. Yeah. And also like 20 years later really resonate with me.
Yeah.
The artist led, the way we interact with clients, the work ethic is still there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm curious because the great changes in audio technology have brought us to this particular moment with Atmos, with post-production. How did this all influence you in terms of your Atmos work and going from mixing to post?
Yeah. So
what is the difference in mixing from post to part two question?
Yeah. So I'm find myself now in this Atmos music journey. So Atmos music is just over 2 years old, I believe. I was always, when I was talking to the teams and stuff from Dolby, under the impression the States was a little bit ahead. It was always considered. I still think you are a bit ahead, like about a year ahead. When I got into it, it was more like you were 2 years ahead. And now, we got kind of, the technology has evolved from theatre and TV sound, but the Atmos music is its own format now. So that is streaming on Tidal, Amazon Music, and then came about a year ago to Apple Music and their spatial audio. And I'm in my ATC 914 room now. And something that I was kind of determined to do when on the install, if you notice, just there's a big wood panel there where traditionally there's a TV screen. And because I wanted to be a dedicated music space, I wanted to try and remove as much of the tech, or the visual tech in a sense anyway, and let it be about the immersive music experience.
Now, so for post, when you need to do something to screen, do you bring something into that room and you're
So
able to see?
so I am 100% Atmos music focused. I don't do
Period.
anything in post. I don't do anything to picture.
Got it.
So I am 100% focused on Atmos music
Mm-hmm.
and the way that's being delivered now. And I can't remember the last stereo. I think it was like 18 months ago was my last stereo mix. Such has been the demand, or such as the reaction and the demand, and kind of, it's a new format, right? It's a new format, and and it's still very new to the industry, and we're still trying to raise awareness while we're doing projects. And there's a vast range, actually. Some people come in and we're like, we've done records together now, so they know what to expect. They know how it transitions across the different devices to get some idea. But even that's changing, right? It's a new format, and the way Atmos music is being delivered is changing quite a pace. It's quite an exciting time. It's like I find myself in this. Yeah, it's a new format for music, and the way it's being delivered is changing as well.
Well, I got to tell you, there's a facility opening up here, and Dolby has been in lots of discussions with us, and we're doing a series of shows about Atmos education on the mastering side, on the mixing side. But one of the things that is really important for folks who are utilizing, and how Atmos is now being democratized. Here's how Atmos can be utilized by the home producer, Atmos in the car, Atmos in...
for sure.
Atmos is everywhere. And one of the things that is really important, and one of the things that brought this together, is tools that you can utilize to make. And we use two determinants in our world about good tools. One, we kind of see what Dave thinks, and then we kind of see what people we like think. And then we look at all the technical thing it does. And NuGen in particular, as a company, almost everybody likes their stuff. And they're really smart and thoughtful about it. I noticed that NuGen with you is something you use a lot of different tools. I mean, from Paragon to Halo, all the different the suites and stuff they have. Talk about NuGen and how they work in your world, both in Atmos stuff and also just in general, what you think about it.
Yeah, so NuGen have been big support for me, and I wish I had more time to explore more of their plugins and more not so much more of their plugins, but I think more of their capabilities, if anything. I think there's some real creative applications. And it's definitely on my list to explore. But I've kind of got camps. I've got two camps that I work with NuGen, and the first one would be like the utility side. So the VisLM. So within Atmos Music, we mix to a loudness regulation of -18. And there is depending. Well, yeah. So we have a loudness target. We can creep over it, and we can obviously be under it. And VisLM 2 is key for that in a couple of ways. So that's when I'm running a mix, the way I get it set up, my assistant Luke, who's next door, is he'll pre-mix a project. That's where we're taking like a stereo mastered WAV and the mix stems, and then we'll gain stage and replicate any mastering that's happened in a way that it's accessible to me in Atmos. Which basically means not too much accumulative processing. We can't if something's getting that vibe, sound, feel, and then I start pulling signal from that within the space, then it's all going to collapse. So we kind of got that down, and then that'll be where VisLM 2 will first come in. So when I'm mixing an album, so all my work, it has been mixed in stereo and mastered. So what we do is what I like to do when I'm mixing EPs, albums, is have all the tracks within the same Pro Tools session. So the first step will be load in the album stereo mastered WAVs and put them in order. We then, obviously, they're significantly louder than -18. So Luke will measure those with VisLM and start plotting that dynamic journey across an album. And then once we get that within our target to meet the regulation, he can then start prepping the stems in folders to match the timing. I mean, it could be timings, right? It could be, we've had all sorts with stems. There's a preview process to make sure everything's there, but also there could be vary speed at the mastering, right? We've had that come up before. A lot of the times when they come from the greats, like we were talking about before, that they match. It's
right.
incredible. But we do a wide range of work, and so VisLM will come in there because we want to retain that dynamic journey that's gone into a stereo album, right? We want that ebb and flow of a record. So yeah, that'll be the starting point, and then we can use VisLM to kind of chart that, and then we'll pre-mix the stems to those stereo masters at the correct level. And then when I'm running the mix, I've got the iPad. I'll stop doing the pointing thing. I've got the iPad there as a second screen, and I'll often just throw VisLM 2 up and it'll just give me an idea if I'm getting too loud or I can add some level. So as a utility, that's across every mix, but that's also before I get to mix, before Luke's pulled it into the template and I'm ready to go. The VisLM's kind of like a key utility that enables us to gain stage and replicate that dynamic journey, and also make sure we're hitting that loudness regulation as hard as we can.
What's the other camp? So that's one utility in this.
Yeah, so then I've got kind of my creative camp, right? So then we got things like Paragon. Actually, I'll talk about the Halo upmix first, because Paragon kind of sits in between the two sometimes. So what should we do? Let's do Paragon, because we said it. So Paragon kind of sits in between the two. So when I'm, often, like, let's talk about lead vocals. So when I get a lead vocal stem, so I get somebody's mix stems in, we get a project, we get the mix stems. Often, the majority of the time, the lead vocal will be a stereo stem with its effects. Now, one of the cool things about Atmos is that you've got all this extra space. So you've got this deeper, wider, and height as well. So where, say, a lead vocal stem's really well crafted, and we've got kind of, there's the spaces. I always think of the front and then making the dimension. So thinking about the space. So with Paragon, I like to use that on lead vocals. Is some of the presets are really cool. I've got a dark chamber that I really like. And what that allows me to do is tonally match the reverb on the lead vocal. And then quite quickly through the IO panel is I then mute the front. And then what I'm doing there, so with Atmos, it's about space. And sometimes I have to artificially replicate the space. But we don't want to build up reverb where it's not needed. So it isn't needed across the front because it's already really well crafted in that lead vocal stem.
Right.
So then I get to shut that off through Paragon. And then when we're folding down to things like earbuds and headphones, the mix isn't awash with reverb.
That's the depth of the tools that are so amazing. It makes you as a chef, a 4-star chef as opposed to a 1-star chef.
It's really sharp knives and like the best ingredients, right? Because it's so accessible, and there's just like You haven't got to do that. Oh, where's that layer? Where's that? It's kind of very much sort of in front of you and intuitive, which, I'm sure we all love.
Yeah.
Paul, I like Dark Church. That's the one I use a lot with Paragon.
Yeah.
So Paul Weller is a very important part of your career arc. How are you handling that particular client who's been with you forever, Paul Weller of the Jam, one of my favorite 80s groups? How are you bringing him into Atmos?
So I'm sure he won't mind me saying this. So Paul's a dear friend and my longest standing, closest client relationship. Again, I was very young when I started working with Paul. He's very encouraging and promoted me. I engineered for him on one session, and then 6 months later I'm co-producing, and I don't know if I was ready or not, but he saw something and he encouraged it, which I'll always be grateful for him. So Paul is currently my he's asked if I would do a mix on spec. So I was like, for you, my old friend, I will do that. So I picked the single, right? I picked the single off the last. It's funny, we made a couple of albums in lockdown, so we kind of had these back to back like 2 records in 12 months or something crazy. And so I went back to the first of those records and I was like, look, the single, 3 minutes 10. I'm kind of doing it for free here. Like I'm doing it on spec. Right. He's never heard Atmos, right? I'm going to do that. So he then texts me and I got it as a classic, Paul. It's like 2:30 in the morning. And he's like, no. We're doing the opener. It's like 8 minutes 10. Sonic's journey. Goes into like soundscapes and got like 8.5 minutes in. I was like, God. All right, yeah, that's a couple of days' work then. All right, yeah, cool. But you can't say no to the man.
Are you redoing any of the jam or the style council? I can't say it, style council.
No, so we're doing. I can't imagine, knowing Paul as I do, I can't imagine. I don't like to speak for anybody, but I can't imagine that would. There's a couple of the things there. I can't imagine that would be his thing. He's not nostalgic in that sense, and he's always looking forward. And and it's interesting you say that, David. I've had several engineers reach out to me in the last year, talking about catalog for Atmos music, kind of like thinking about CD and vinyl and that kind of catalog sort of talk. And there is definitely. I've done a few projects, but they all stem from, I'd say 80+% of my work is new records. It's new music.
Wow.
Yeah. It's new music. It is, And then I'd say the catalog work that I've done, it tends to be, I do a record for somebody because they've got a new release, and then we go and do their previous 2 albums after they have hopefully have a great experience.
The Oasis album Time Flies is one of my favorite. I see you smiling, you know what I'm going to ask you. That's a journey through the 80s, and I'm a child of the 80s and a lot of my sensibilities as a mix engineer. Pick a song for the audience that would give them an example of classic Stan.
Oh, in my new guise as an Atmos mixer is kind of what I love about Atmos, and it's hard to say because it's a new format, and I don't think stylistically we're there. So there's not like it's what makes it so exciting, but it also, and talk about learning when we were talking earlier. I mean, my workflow has changed like significantly. Every 6 months, it's sort of a clear out. It's my stereo template got somewhere and there were options, and I was pretty, a tweak here and there as we were going. But like this is a new format, so it's really hard to say. And the other part of that I think is tricky to say is the approach for Atmos. Or my approach for Atmos music changes depending on the genre and depending on the project.
100%.
So what's applicable for some of my some of my proudest moments, like the Bicep record, which is it's a dynamic use of Atmos. Okay, so there's lots of movement, front to back and up and down. There is, it's predominantly, I don't really like the term, but it's like sort of electronically produced music or like EDM or something. So it's not. Those guys are like analog central, and it's all really well crafted, and but it's music for a club. And I think there's something there with the approach where we've evolved by being a club is an immersive experience sonically. So the format that it leans to, it feels good when the sound is moving all around you. And then kind of the opposite of that is kind of the sort of guitar-based music, rock music or guitar-based music. The approach there has to be very different, because we haven't evolved from the guitar wandering behind your head or suddenly the solos coming from over. I mean, there are no rules, and I think this will evolve. But currently, it kind of the feeling is so important, right? You've got to be able to connect. It's still music. It's got, we do this. I do this a lot when I'm talking about dynamic. We can go front to back and up, and we've got height, and we can go up and down. But somehow it's got to be music. It's got to be cohesive, and some of those approaches. And I mean, the classical. I've done old bits of classical where that just that can't have any movement and is kind of restricted in the genre. So it tends to be sort of taller and wider. So it's definitely the approach. It's kind of so important. It's harder to pin down sort of one album or one track.
But it seems to me, if somebody's not a mixer, that's where companies who are thinking the way you think, that we're in this new format, it's evolving, changes are coming, the environments that it's being used in are different, technology pushes it all the time, and I go back to NuGen when I think about how down the road they have to think, and sometimes you're thinking into the unknown. You don't know where it's coming, so you kind of have to take a leap of faith, both creatively, acoustically, sound-wise, economically, and find people like yourself who then can actually turn it into tools that are usable. And I often think that as sort of on the edge of this thing, because when you look at the rate that Atmos has been accepted and where it goes and across the formats and just the onslaught of content that has happened. I mean, it's really a new world, which is new life for mixers who might not be as talented as you, who got a chance to do Lord and do other kinds of things. You can play over here and potentially find a space. So, we often try to say to people, use the technology, don't let the technology use you. But the technology is important, so you have to select really good things that allow you to play in the game, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think Atmos is a real is a prime example of that. That don't use the technology, don't let it use you. And the again, going into the approach, it's music. It's got it's got to feel like music. It's got to. It's funny because even with some of those catalogs, some of the older catalog tracks that I've done, I was very lucky to do a Rolling Stones reissue, which I jumped at the chance, and who wouldn't? And but then, like day one, I'm there and I'm pulling "Start Me Up" around, and anything I did, it sounded different to the song I've heard for the last 40 years.
That you love.
And yeah, right. That's ingrained in mainstream culture, and different isn't good in music. In a like, if somebody's like, "Oh, that's different." So it became a challenge in itself. Like it's but yeah, the technology aspects of it, right, is so important, and that is changing. I mean, Logic have just released another update where Atmos now is native within, and the Apple encoding is now native within Logic. Like I think Herb, you said earlier about Mercedes launched with cars as a if you think if you think of a car as a multi-speaker environment, you put two on the ceiling, it should be primed for Atmos. They should be able to get that really right. And again, maybe where you say, it's something I think about a lot, is where do you draw the line of mixing with one, I'm going to say ear, one ear on the future. I'm going to say eye, one eye on the future. Like, we've got to be aware of where this has come from and potentially where it's going. But I feel quite strongly that we need, as mixers, to always be delivering to the highest standard of how a mix is going to be heard today.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to get too distracted about a possible something down the road. But isn't that the exciting thing as well, right? Isn't that like how this is like we're saying, like continual learning, staying on top of these things? I mean, it's almost like a part-time job, keeping up with the evolving tech of Atmos music.
100%.
Stan, it seems to me like this is just me, that part of our job is leading our audience and our clients into the future. You know what I'm saying? I think that's something I try to do with every mix I do. A lot of times the client doesn't want it, but I think our job, part of it, is to lead into the future.
I would agree. I'm hesitating because of we've got in Atmos, we haven't got much heritage. We haven't got, and it's changing so quickly, right? So if you think of as a format, it's just over 2 years old, and it went through a monumental change last year in its second year. It almost, sometimes it feels like just hold on for the ride, which I'm kind of like, I was saying the other week that we were having a meeting, and I just like, let's just ride the tiger. Let's just like, let's see where it's going, but we've got to stay on top of it. And we've got to kind of, do our best to anticipate and, and what I like to do. So a lot of I'm always keen. COVID's robbed us a little bit of this, but like, I'm always keen to have the artist involved, the collaboration, come to the space. Let's, and a lot of those start off with, I've never done this before. What am I doing?
Right.
So there we do. I did an approval yesterday where client comes in. We're in this, very fortunate to be in this space that we are now. And there's, there's ATCs all around. There's 14 speakers, and it sounds amazing. And I tend to, and I talk everybody through this for the first time and say, like, my goal is to wow you with, a loud Atmos experience. And then we go to the domestic devices and then build up your confidence that it's going to translate. So they're raising awareness. We go to, we've got the Sonos with the TV. We've got the Amazon Echo Studio, which is a sort of smart speaker, which is like the smallest. I kind of refer to it as the Atmos Orotone it's a mix checker, right? It's the small, I think it's a 4-1-1. So there's two stereo pairs. There's the 4, there's an upward 1, and there's a sub in it. But that's my Atmos Orotone. So then we build that narrative and the headphones, and hopefully again, raising awareness, but also giving our clients the confidence in, oh, okay, we're getting this now. We understand how this is going to translate.
And here is the other side as we get ready for Batter's Box, or just a perspective, I should say. And this is a little bit of a pop culture one. There's a national commercial. There's a company called Indeed that you go to if you need jobs filled, and they sort of posit different scenarios. Oh, I need a job counselor. Oh, I need a health provider. Well, they recently did one with people looking for a mix engineer. A national commercial that runs across. Now, that never would have happened 10 years ago. And the thing that has evolved that we've seen, hopefully we've contributed to, is that audio is critical to things. You ever watched a movie without audio? Kind of sucks. And I'm on I'm on a bunch of educational things, and I'm watching all these different platforms, AR, virtual reality, movies, animation, gaming, and their focus now on audio is through the roof. And how specific audio can be to telling the story, to having the spatial experience, to having the virtual reality experience, let alone the metaverse. And so I think history chooses you. You don't choose it. And all you guys are on the cutting edge of this new thing because the time and the technology like NuGen and the opportunity have come together. And so we're cutting our way through the weeds and figuring it out and so forth. But that's super exciting, super opportunistic. And you get to hear back the results of the work. When you do your mix, or Dave does a mix for Atmos or whatever the case may be, and you use your NuGen tools and your Halo and your all that kind of stuff, and then you hear it back and go, oh, wow, like this is a whole new world with new worlds coming. So I didn't mean to do the soliloquy, but I often want the audience to know you're sitting on the edge of a really exciting time, and you have to engage and learn and get to know companies like NuGen or Pensado's Place or Stan Kybert or whatever the case may be, because it's going to change your life and allow you to have a career. Welcome to the new world. It's here. Do you want to be part of it or you want to be left behind? Right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's so exciting. It's such a privilege. I mean, it's crazy. Like there's when I got into this, there was like in the UK, there was a handful of people.
Yeah.
Like, there were like 5 people. There were 5.
Amazing.
The Atmos community was 5 people really so there's that element of it. The educational side is really, really, really important. And it's something that I'm talking to somebody else about potentially doing something down the road later on this year. And yeah, the tools, just something else you maybe think about then when you were talking, it was just about the way the great tools, they'd always lay a foundation for me. They always allow that foundation for creativity.
Yeah.
So we kind of we have this. There's you've got your toolbox, right? You've got your fundamentals. Every mix, like we were saying, the like VisLM and in utility and the Paragons, and then we've got this cutting edge. So the things we're doing now, it's things I'm trialing with Halo, which is an up mixer. So again, when we're taking like a stereo stem, sometimes I had a mix today where there was very little separation in the stems that were delivered.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, there were like 3 parts within the keys. So it's just a keys. It was one stereo stem labeled keys. All the parts there, all the sounds amazing. But there's 3 parts. There's a clear. I just break it down into simplest form as well. There was kind of low, mid, and high frequency parts within this stereo stem.
Mm-hmm.
The Halo. So Halo is an up mixer. It will take a stereo signal and it will magically, it will then up mix it into different speaker configurations or output configurations. So in this case, I took it from a stereo to 712. So that 7 is the head height, 1's the sub, and 2 are the 2 above. Mm-hmm. And I have no idea how they do this. And there's 2 parts to this, which is like magical.
Amazing. Yeah.
So the first one is it splits out those parts within the space by frequency and volume. So as this keys part was getting louder and higher pitch parts were coming in towards the chorus, it was expanding into the room. And then when it got out of the chorus and hit the second verse and went back down to the low Hammond part, it then collapsed back into stereo.
Wow.
So it's like dynamic processing.
Mm-hmm.
And the detail and the separation it gets is crazy. I have no idea how they do that. And then like the complete magical part of all of this is the way it folds back down to stereo. So it consistently, headphones are a huge part of this Atmos journey.
Right. Yeah.
And your fold downs are going to be, probably how people are going to hear your work.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the way it folds that back down is incredible.
Well, here's the other thing that's incredible is we love batters boxes with UK accents. So instead of the normal American basketball, baseball, football player, now we got soccer, football being soccer there. So Dave, tee it up, and then you got to protect the net, homie.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Tubes or tape?
Tubes.
Favorite audio digital converter?
The Happy. Who makes that? The Happy by Emerging.
Good call. Major or minor key?
Major.
Chords?
I'm not that musical, Dave, but I will go C, G, and D.
Yeah, you're not that musical. I'm sorry for you.
I should have gone like brown. I should have gone brown jumbo chords because we're in the UK.
I'm enough. That's one of my favorite answers that we've ever had. Do you prefer the hi-hat on the left or the right side of the stereo image?
Well, I'm immersive now, Dave. I like it everywhere.
Yeah, all over. Absolutely.
Great answer. Great answer. The most annoying frequency?
12K.
Summing?
All for it.
Distortion?
Devil Lock Deluxe.
I think I know the answer to this one. Limiting?
FabFilter Pro L2.
Okay. Subs? The 0.1s?
What have I got? Genelec. I've got the Genelec. I don't know the number. Genelec. It's over there.
And what would your Desert Island plugin be?
Desert Island plugin.
I guess you need a computer, but it's already
Yeah. I mean,
when you crash, there was already a computer and electricity. So
you can't. I never, like I said before, I never have a project that hasn't got NuGen Viz LM2, and that's before I get my hands on it. And it's in my template, like the whole prep stage, and so Viz LM2.
Yeah.
Great answer. Great
Batter's box.
Yeah. An extension of Batter's box. I'd like to mention Stereo Placer, Stereoizer, and Monofilter are my favorite NuGen plugins. I love those three plugins.
So there's a Into the Layer that I was watching recently, and I think again they're like the Stereoizer. I think there's something. This on my list of like exploring.
Yeah,
and
it's deep.
This and I was talking to Freddie about it a little bit, where maybe there's endless possibilities in Atmos, but there's kind of this dynamic, like I was saying with Halo, it's got this capability of extracting sounds, and it's dynamic, right? I've experimented with vocals a little bit in the same, right? So vocal, the lead vocal tends to get louder and higher pitch when it hits the chorus, so it kind of does this swelling effect. I did a record recently that was it was a little bit more stripped back. It wasn't so full production, so it definitely lent towards the voices being everywhere. And when I'm remembering, the lead vocal stem had a lot of harmonies and double tracking in there as well. But yeah, there's things like imagine Stereoizer then going into Halo. That's on my list. How's that then going to dynamically react? And possibilities.
I think Stereo Placer is going to be good in Atmos because you can put the low frequencies on one spot and the high frequencies on another. You can split that plugin. I don't know how it works. I think it's voodoo, but it really works good.
Well, I tell you what is not voodoo is Stan Kybert's work. And the other thing that is not voodoo at all, audience, is NuGen's stuff. Stan's excitement, Dave's excitement, that's based on them using it and what it actually, what absolutely allows them to be better at what they're doing. And that says a lot about the company, the focus, the looking into the future, which makes you better and makes your opportunities even better. We're lucky that we get to know the people. We've talked with Freddie. Freddie cares about this stuff, man. He's in it that way, and it's not. You couldn't stop his passion with a truck, and that comes out with their whole team in those actual tools. And the other part I think that's important is to know that Dave and I get to get on each week and be fans of the guests that we meet. We get a lot of love, and it's really incredible. And it's 12 years later, we're still getting love. Know, Stan, that it's as important to us to meet you, learn from you, hear what you do, admire your work, admire. And the thing that's so sexy, and before we wrap it up, is that there's all this rich history and all this rich future. Like it continues to be something that unfolds and uncomes. So we thank you so much for joining us. Hope you had a good time.
Oh, amazing. Just, what an experience. I'm a huge fan of everything you guys do and been watching for years. And just an absolute honor. Thank you so much. And
this will not be the last time. We got a lot of education stuff. Some people wants to come to the UK. Love to involve you in that. Love to involve you in that.
Man.
So we got a lot of stuff to let us know if you're coming to NAMM. We'll take care of you. So more to come. Dave, great job. And audience, you've met a killer. You learned about a killer company. You've learned about killer tools. Utilize them, and we'll see you next week.